Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another installment of the pre-recorded interviews for Radio Fremantle 107.9 FM. My name is Benjamin. Good evening and welcome again. Thank you for joining us in this interview. It is my very special pleasure today to welcome our newest guest on the show, Hazel Sinanan. Hazel has actually, well, as you might guess from the family name and from the accent, which you're soon to hear, she is from the Caribbean islands as well. She's from Trinidad, now living in London. Now, this very, very special lady, again, following in the footsteps of my more recent interviewee, Johan, who is also based, I believe, on a Caribbean island as we speak. He was speaking about some very important topics, especially important to me, but also for the, well, in my opinion, for humanity at large. And in a similar vein, today we've had this special guest come on, Hazel, who'll be joining us. She'll be speaking about similar topics, themes, and issues to do with the spirituality of humanity, basically. And at this time, it is my firm belief that it is now more important than ever to really come to grips with and make an understanding of our relationship to the divine, because as we are going to find out very soon from Hazel herself, there is a very special time coming up. Well, in fact, we're in the midst of it, and she's going to help us to uncover more about that time. Now, Hazel, are you hearing me loud and clear?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Wonderful. Welcome, Hazel. Thank you so much for being on the program. Now, I did do a very brief introduction then about yourself, but I'd like to begin as we like to do generally with these interviews. If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about who you are and what you do, and maybe how you came about to where you are right now.
Yes, that's fine. Well, I'm Hazel, and I'm honored to be here on this program. I'm originally from Trinidad in the Caribbean, where I lived for, I would say, 27 years of my life. I grew up in the countryside, and I'm one of 5 children. And from a spirituality point of view, I grew up as a Christian. So I was Presbyterian by religion, and I would be taken to church and attend Sunday school, things of that nature. And the schools I attended tended to be very much sort of denominational.
Yes.
So I grew up in that context or framework, but my parents weren't, I would say, strict sort of Presbyterians. We weren't forced to go to church or things of that nature.
Right, yeah.
And I always tended to sort of have a mind of my own. I was always independent-minded. And I wasn't born conscious of my abilities, but I would say that from the age of 16 or even a little before that, I found myself gravitating very much towards philosophy. And I was drawn to the philosophy of Khalil Gibran and so on. I would study those types of books, and it became very much ingrained as part of my thinking. And I tended to be a bit serious-natured, and I would actually, whilst my siblings would be playing and so on, I tended to be the one who would sit and read. In high school, I was very much taken with the arts, and I found myself being inspired, and I would write poetry and perform. But at that very early age, I was very much keen. I was keen to be a lawyer. I was very justice. Yes, I was very justice-oriented, even from the early age of 13.
Okay, so the arts and poetry and law as well.
Yes. So I had the vision at the age of 13 that I was going to be a lawyer. And as I felt that and knew it, I became a lawyer.
You literally became a lawyer.
Yes.
Yes.
Many years later, I qualified in 1994 as an attorney at law. And I became what is called a litigator. So I began practicing in the high courts as an advocate. And in those days, my specialty was in banking and finance litigation.
Oh, really?
And then after 4 years of practicing there, I decided to move to England to pursue a Master of Laws degree at the London School of Economics, where I mastered in public international law and alternative dispute resolution.
Okay.
So, after many years of living in a very small country or island, where life was very much different and the pace of life was different and the thinking was different, I sort of had a baptism by fire, so to speak, when I came to this very, larger than life, so to speak, country, and I had to adjust to different things, including the temperature
Yes, of
and,
course. Mm.
and the culture, which was slightly different. But I value the ability to adjust very easily. So I began to fit in, and when I completed my master's, I was offered a job by a prestigious law firm, and I began to feel at that point in time as if my life was orchestrated, as if I was meant to be in this place and this
Right.
space. The universe was actually working things out in my favor.
Mm, mm, mm. Well,
And
sorry, go ahead.
And it was during that time, because during my time of studying here, obviously I had a lot of adjustments to make. I had to deal with a lot of issues. And even when I started my job in this country, the journey really only then began.
Right, right. Now it's interesting.
So
It's interesting you say that. I just take a moment with this. You talk about being led in that direction and the path that you take very much almost preordained, or at least there was a certain rightness to what was going on in
yes,
your life, which is something I can identify with, and I think it's very poignant because in order to do what you do now, which is not you still practice law to a degree as
yes,
far as I'm aware, but where you're taking your life now, it's interesting that you had a life very much firmly planted in the law and grounded in a human law and a real, in terms of our society generally as a whole, acceptable in terms of acceptable practices and occupations taken more seriously than most. Law is definitely one of the most. And to consider that you went into law and then went into now more based into a healing ministry, as you're going to uncover for us very soon. I think it was exactly right. I think it was meant to be that way, and in a sense, in order to do what you need to do now and the mission that you've taken upon yourself, it lends you so much more legitimacy in some people's eyes. Not that it's necessary in others' eyes, but in a world that we're in today, in order to be taken more seriously, it does seem that some of these occupations, some people of certain mindsets are more accepted than others. And I feel like that's what's happened for you in order to prepare the way for the work that you're undertaking now. Does it feel like that?
yes, it does feel like that because I left private practice 6 years ago and I joined a company which is an educational company. So what I do currently is that I train qualified lawyers as part of their continuing professional development. And for those who wish to gain higher rights of audience to make submissions and to present cases before the High Court and Supreme Court judges, I train them for that purpose.
Ah,
So
okay.
I have been teaching also over the last 6 years. And that in itself has been a blessing because it has prepared me to be a presenter, to be a teacher. It
Mm,
has allowed me to interact with the different types of audiences and to be able to gauge the ability of different people to internalize and consolidate information so that this training in itself has trained me to be able to reach out to people at different levels of their understanding.
absolutely. And it's interesting. Did you manage, Hazel, to listen by chance to another interview that we took part in with Ron Chapman? Did you manage to catch
I
that interview?
wasn't able to listen to that one,
No, well,
no.
Ron, as you're already aware, I believe, Hazel, Ron Chapman from Abundant Hope, which you're also a member of, is a lawyer as well, and
Yes.
his background firmly grounded in that system of law. And then he presents information now in a very he represents truth. He uncovers a lot of incredible information and has that similar background. I think it's fantastic in order to make the changes that you feel need to be made now for you to have that grounding in a very earthly, human kind of, shall we say, occupation and ideology, and then able to make that transition. It's just commenting. It is wonderful to see, and I'm glad. I think it's fantastic for your preparation as well.
Thank you.
So now we might end up going straight into the next phase of this operation, as it were. I really want to start getting into where you're heading now. You have also, apart from your teaching and your litigation work, you're a very busy woman. You also have your own healing ministry and teaching ministry. Can we talk a little bit about that? Can you start to uncover for us what exactly it is that you do?
Of course. Well, 3 years ago, I had a massive awakening where I was feeling slightly stuck in my life, and I called upon God. I called upon Him in the lowest moments in my life, and I cried out to Him, and He answered me. And that itself was a miracle in my life. And everything in my life began to open because his answer was that he filled me with so much love that my focus began to change. I began to evolve. The spiritual part of me began to evolve. And as I began to evolve, I had all these different forces in the universe working with me. And I had a visitation from Archangel Michael.
Okay.
And he said to me on more than one occasion that I was being prepared for a task for God.
Okay. Well, this is it's interesting. Firstly, that you say you had a moment. You had a moment where you were down and you were in desperation and you were in need of some help, and maybe knew not where to turn for the type of help you were looking for. And this is a common theme, actually, similarly in terms of some of the interviews we've had before, people having this moment that you talk about, that really changes everything, this moment where you look for help from within rather than without, and something changes, something happens to turn the table, turn the tide, and set you off in a direction maybe you had no idea you'd be headed. It's fascinating to see that for the most part, it seems that a lot of people who make these incredible changes in life have this moment, and they embrace the change and the new path that is offered. And I see that's replicated here for you.
Yes. And the funny thing about it was that I was searching for love. I was searching for love. And when I called upon the Father in my moments of desperation, He filled me with love. So the first lesson He taught me was that you must stop looking outside of yourself for love, because He filled me from within and He allowed me to know Him from within. And thereafter, He charted my journey. Okay. And I began to blossom thereafter. And eventually, during the passage of time, when I had many metaphysical experiences, and I began to be telepathic. So I was gifted with telepathy, which allowed me to actually connect with higher beings of light and to receive divine messages. And as you may know, I became a channel for the divine, and I began channeling a great deal of teaching messages from my higher self to begin with. I would remember going to bed after a hard day's work, and my higher self said, I wish to speak to you about this. I wish to speak to you about that. I'd have to get up and get a pen and paper and start to write. But for me, it was such a momentous occasion. It was thrilling for me. It was inspiring for me that I was able to breach the barriers and boundaries of my human consciousness and to be able to tap into this higher consciousness. And I took it, as we tend to say in Trinidad, like a duck to water. And they began to teach me that there were no boundaries, there were no limits. And I began to push what I thought in my human perception were boundaries. And I said, well, Father, you are telling me that there are no boundaries, so there are no boundaries. And I began to work with so many different beings of light. And there was one night in particular where I was writing and my pen was sort of taken over. There was a power that took over my pen, and the words just started to flow without me actually moving it, mighty God is present.
Okay.
That,
Oh, well,
that was another.
sorry, Hazel. Sorry about that. I just wanted to check here because I must admit to you this is not the first time I've had on the show here someone who has admitted to having some telepathic ability and also a channel. Can we briefly, if you feel comfortable to do that, reiterate what exactly you
Yes,
mean by telepathy and what you really also mean by channeling? Just again to reorient the audience who might
sure,
be unfamiliar with it.
of course. Telepathy is really the ability to hear uh, using your higher senses. So you know how we tend to hear with our ears or our outer ears. So you can hear me speak, I can hear you speak.
Yeah.
But the reason why a man generally, that is the race of man, cannot generally hear our higher celestial brothers speak to us is because they do not speak in a way that our physical ears can hear. They speak in subtle tones with using subtle energy that our higher senses, which are our inner senses, will be able to hear if we can attune ourselves to those inner senses. So there is something called clairaudience, all right, which allows you to be able to hear higher guidance. And all you really need to do, and you can develop it with practice, you can get yourself in a state of relaxation where you relax your outer senses and you sort of lose that body awareness,
Okay.
and you begin to travel into your inner world, to your inner senses,
Okay.
and you intend to connect with a higher being, let's say the God within you, or to an angel, or to an ascended master. And once you intend, you state that powerful intent, or you state that intent powerfully, and you affirm your desire, and that desire is sort of recorded in your heart, and you get yourself into that state of relaxation, you will find that you begin to hear guidance. It will come as a thought. So telepathy is really the transference of energy through the thought system that is converted into your understanding through whatever language you speak.
Okay. Okay. That's very clear. That's fantastic. Can I then ask as well? You mentioned as well, just very very briefly, the inner sense and the outer sense. Obviously, we have generally recorded five senses. In
Mm-hmm.
terms of the outer senses, as you mentioned, often picking up vibration, the light through the eyes, these things which our brain, as a computer, as a kind of computer, processes and translates for us to understand in certain ways. You mentioned inner senses. Can you just clarify the inner senses? Can you do that briefly?
Yes, of course. There are several inner senses or higher senses, but I will mention the four that most people will tend to be familiar with.
Okay, great.
Clairaudience, which I just explained. So
Yes.
telepathy is a form of clairaudience, so higher hearing.
Mm-hmm.
There's clairvoyance, which allows you to see through your inner eye, or what is called third eye. So you know how sometimes you might get a vision? For people who
Yes.
meditate, sometimes they get a vision, or some people who are psychic, they tend to get visions
Right.
also.
Right.
That vision is not something that appears on the outside, but it appears in their mind's eye.
Okay, so they're not going crazy if they see something in their head that makes no sense. It could
No,
be a vision.
that's correct.
Oh,
And
that's good news.
sometimes our higher self, or the divine within us, or the angels, they connect with us through clairvoyancy. So they might give us a vision, and that in itself might mean something to us. We can get the message from that vision.
Okay.
Then there is claircognizance, which is called knowing. Now, knowing is different from sensing. The outer sensing, our outer senses, is equated to what we call sense awareness. But our knowing comes from what is called mind awareness. That mind awareness comes from the unfolding of our inner senses. It is our ability to attune our inner senses to the higher mind, which is the divine mind, which we all have within us, so that we can download or unfold what is called knowledge or knowing.
Okay.
And that knowing is incontrovertible. When you have a knowing of something, there is no doubt. There is no question. You just know it. Have you ever spoken to someone and they tell you, I don't care what you say, I absolutely know this because there is something within me that is telling me that this is so.
Yes, definitely. All the time.
That is what is called knowing. Knowing comes from mind awareness, your ability to become aware of the higher mind and tap into that higher mind where all truth and all wisdom exists.
Fantastic.
Awaiting unfolding.
Very good, Hazel. Good. So was that 3 or 4? Did we do 4?
And the last one is clairsentience, which is very much a byproduct of your intuition.
Okay. What is this one?
And I
Tell us
think,
more.
yeah, we should know what intuition is. You know, sometimes again, you talk about that gut instinct.
Yes.
All right, and the gut instinct comes from our solar plexus, which is like let's say between our heart and our belly, our navel, right? Our midriff, so to speak. You feel it there. That
Yes.
is the seat of your intuition. Sometimes our higher self will give us these feelings through that physical part of our body.
Okay.
That is your intuition. The
Okay.
feeling body.
Okay, well that's pretty clear, and even for the most part, many listeners might not have heard any of this information before, but I'm sure some people are identifying common themes in their own life. I believe for the most part, all of us would identify with the moment we feel like we know something, or we're intuited from our gut, as it's often said. You have this gut instinct. Or as you're saying, it's more of an intuition, but they feel like it's an instinctual knowing about what's going on. And then people get images in their head. They say, where did that image pop in from? For the most part, they don't pay any attention. They throw it aside as so much chaotic disturbance in the mind, but it could have more relevance than they realize. And then, of course, as you say, some kind of audience, an audible translation through the inner senses of a message translated into your language. I can honestly tell you, Hazel, that I myself am feeling one of those right now. The intuition that I've made a great decision in bringing you into the program for an interview. That's wonderful. That was very clear. Okay, so great. So let's move on then. I just wanted to clarify that for the audience, for those people who might not be so familiar with that information, and also channeling. Can you tell me what is this channeling for you?
Yeah, it's simply whereby the person, let's say like myself or even yourself, we are a channel for the divine energy. We are all channels of divine energy because we carry the divine within us. Some of us are simply more aware than others at this point, but everyone in time will get to that point. So those of us who are aware, and we have basically said to the higher beings or to the Father, use me as a channel of your divine energy. If you have a message that you wish to bring through me for humanity, please do. So you are simply a channel or a facilitator or a conduit for this information. In other words, what you are receiving, and again, you tend to receive it telepathically, is that which comes from a source other than yourself. It is not your own message. You are simply a channel or a conduit.
Now, Hazel,
you are simply bringing through that message.
Yeah. I see. Hazel, there are some people, especially people who might be listening to this, who have more of a religious bent on this sense, and there are some ideas about, possession. The difference between, some people might be very wary of what you're talking about here, because for the most part, and this is more about the religions that teach us these things, but it's worth noting that it's suggested that if anyone was to, or any being or entity or thing were to try and communicate through you, that be a form of possession, and there were people who were burnt for these things. Now,
Yes.
there is a difference between what you're talking about, possession and possessing someone and channeling through them, is there?
There is a difference because the divine is within you. The divine is a part of you. You are divine. And if you are going to channel, you make that decision that you want to be a channel of divine messages or divine energies that are translated into messages, you have to affirm that specifically, and you have to protect yourself by creating a shield or fort of divine light around you and asking for the divine to protect you whilst you're channeling. So you are ensuring that the energies that are coming through are simply of 100% pure light, but you must affirm it and you must state it categorically. It's
Okay,
only if you are open, if you don't do so, then you become open to other spirits that can come in.
I
So you
understand.
have to fortify yourself, protect yourself in that way. And you raised a very important point. And you raised the point where you say that perhaps people have been burnt at the stake for this in the past. And in fact, there might be many people in this lifetime who have been burnt at the stake in past lives exactly for this. And this in itself has been recorded in their cellular memory and preempts them at this point from being open to the higher divine intervention or divine energies being channeled through them.
Mm, mm. No, well, it is an important point, and I know for myself that I've spoken to a few people who, after hearing interviews, because I have spoken with the gentleman Johan. You might have listened to some of that interview.
Yeah.
He also is a purveyor of messages, a channel, and also a telepathic, and suggesting about awareness to approaching material that like because of basically the history of that type of well, as far as people know, and people really for the most part in general don't know much about these types of things, so the ignorance not necessarily helps their understanding of whether it's good for them or not. Can I ask you what you're suggesting, this clairaudience, clairsentience, all these inner senses, for the most part everybody has these?
Every single child of God has these senses awaiting unfolding within them. Everyone. That is why they say everyone is equal. Everyone has the same God potential, just awaiting awareness.
Okay, so really it's a question of remembering and recollecting that which was forgotten, but in reality, everybody has this heritage, so to speak.
Yes, and being open to it.
Okay, well, we're gonna be continue to be open for the next hour and a half, and
Okay.
hopefully hear a lot more about this. Now, can we move forward a little bit now, Hazel? We were starting to talk about a little bit more about the nature of your healing ministry. Can you talk a little bit about your well, your role now, and in terms of what you do, in terms of your special skills, we can say that you've
Yeah.
developed. Yeah.
Yes. Well, just before I mention that, I would say that I was given my mission a couple of years ago by the divine, and that mission is called The Path to Freedom is Truth. And through the channelings that I have received from various divine sources, the mission is geared towards educating the spirit of man through their minds so that their spirit can become emancipated and they can make a definite choice towards enlightenment. So it's educate, emancipate, and enlighten. And my mission is being recorded in a book as we speak because I was asked by the Creator to do this. Now, as an adjunct to my teaching ministry, I have also been led down the line of healing. And over the last 3 years, I have been exploring various healing modalities, which are simply meant to diagnosing and identifying sort of limiting beliefs and programs and paradigms that we have all inherited or brought from past lives or taken on in this life that are precluding us from discovering our true selves and unleashing our fullest divine potential.
Okay.
and to assist people in clearing those barriers and blockages so that they can accrete and welcome into their bodies a greater degree of divine light and therefore have an idea as to what their purpose is in life and how they should go about fulfilling that purpose.
Okay, and what are some of these things, therefore, Hazel, that you've these skills that you've developed? Can we
Okay.
talk a bit about these?
Yes, I'm an angelic Reiki master teacher and a practitioner, and I have been attuned to the angelic kingdom of light, whereby they use me as a channel to heal others. So I can actually, when I'm in the process of doing healing for someone, feel the angels take over my body. It's as if I become the angel and they simply direct the healing energies, which is the purest energies from the angelic realm, to whatever part of the body that needs to be healed, the physical body, the mental body, the emotional body, or the etheric body. Sometimes they might say to me, Hazel, open your third eye and send healing to a specific part of the body of the person.
Hmm.
So that's one of the healing modalities. Again, I'm just a channel here. Secondly, I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and what we do there is that a lot of times people hold fears and limiting beliefs in their unconscious mind. And they are not aware of that. But that is actually creating, again, blockages and barriers for them moving on in their life. So let me give you an example so your audience can understand. Let us say that a person has developed a habit throughout the course of time of smoking. And every time that the person feels stressed, so every time that the person has felt stressed, they pick up a cigarette to smoke. During the course of how many years that they have been doing so, that habit becomes ingrained as a program in their unconscious mind. Now, the unconscious mind is the bigger part of our mind. So we have let's just say for the sake of simplicity, we have the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. The conscious mind is that part of the mind that we are aware of right now, at present. That person may want to stop smoking for many different reasons, perhaps because for health reasons, or they just want to stop smoking. Their conscious mind wants to stop smoking, but every time they feel stressed out, they naturally go for that cigarette. They don't have the ability or the power to say no to it. They might be able to do it for a few hours or a few days, but then they go back to the habit.
Right.
And that is because the unconscious mind is controlling them. The unconscious mind in this case is the master, which says you are feeling stressed, so you must have a cigarette. No matter that the conscious mind is exercising its reason and will to do otherwise. So at the end of the day, you have to reprogram the unconscious mind so that it knows that it can do without the cigarette and that when it feels stressed, there is another way of dealing with that stress. So that when you reprogram that unconscious mind, it becomes aligned with the will of the conscious mind and they become one. And that person will be able to stop smoking.
I see. Okay. Good. Well,
It's the same thing. Sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead. Continue. I'll ask
I
later.
was saying the same thing with fears. Sometimes you might bring fears from your past life, or sometime as a child, something might happen, and you might develop a fear that becomes ingrained in your unconscious mind. So, let us say, as a child, someone was playing with a dog, they loved the dog, they were playing with a dog, but the dog jumped up and bit them. And that child becomes so afraid of the dog that it becomes an identity which is registered in their unconscious mind. And every time they see a dog thereafter, they have this fear. And it might even translate to having fear of animals generally. So these are some of the things we can work on by putting the client in a state of relaxation We set the conscious mind aside and we use positive suggestions to reprogram the unconscious mind, to remove the limiting beliefs, the blockages, and the barriers, so that the conscious mind and the unconscious mind could be aligned and the person can move on and progress in their lives.
Well, what I'm hearing, Hazel, if I might step in for a moment, I'd like to discuss a point with you. Maybe you could help to shed some light on
Yeah.
it for me. Uh, as far as I'm aware, and my own research has shown me, technically, there are really a few schools of thought on the modalities of healing and the way in which you can heal a person physically, not so much mentally. Generally, in established, accepted Western practices, the realms of psychology and psychiatry mainly deal with the mind. But then you have allopathic medicine disciplines which suggest that the body itself, when suffering from an illness, disease, or virus or some such, is based simply from some kind of physical defect or manifestation of a disease or a virus, etc. What I'm getting here, and what I'd like you to maybe discuss with me a little bit, is the fact that what it appears to me that you're saying is that many of the sources of the problems that we suffer physically, whether those be, as I mentioned, disease or viruses, or even physical manifestations of the breakdown of tissues of the body, cancerous tumors, all these things have some basis, if not entirely basis, in the etheric body, the mental body of the human being. Is this kind of, am I on the right track? Is this what you're...
That is exactly correct.
Okay, so can I just confirm then, because I'm sure that a lot of listeners out there are still, many people who listen to this program, admittedly, and I'm so very glad for it, are more open to the idea that there is more to do with our mental bodies and our etheric bodies to do with our physical condition than simply just the physical condition by itself. But for the majority of people, they would imagine that there is no connection between these, as I said, mental, etheric bodies and the physical body. But you're saying the basis, or the beginning of these things begin in the mind and in the body, which is a more of an intangible body. Is that right?
Yes. So
Okay, so
it's the mental bodies, the emotional body, and the etheric body. So there is some imbalance that is created first and foremost at that level, which during the passage of time solidifies, and it actually compacts itself in our energetic centers. And we do have energetic centers in the body itself, 7 energetic centers in the body. And when it compacts itself there, eventually, through the passage of time, we could develop illnesses in the organs that are related to those parts.
okay, so really, I'm just trying to imagine how to put this together, but because, for instance, if I can make a personal remark, I have a family member, and I'm sure most people can relate to this. When the body itself, when the person becomes stressed, for example, an event or a series of events, a situation, a relationship, some such, evokes such stress in the person, a mental stress. They can often also be manifested as some kind of physical manifestation of that stress. For example, this person
Yes,
in my life had such an incredible mental and spiritual trauma that she developed a neurological disorder which affected the muscles in her body. And I
yes,
would, it really is logical to me. It's logical that there is that great interconnection, that interpenetration of all these bodies, that one would affect the other. And I think this is something that most people can relate to. And it's a very simple and poignant example of the way in which I believe what you're telling us about is when you allow stress to manifest itself so deeply and affect you so greatly that it can actually cause you physical symptoms and bring on some kind of sickness in your physical body. Is that a good example?
yes, that's a good example. Very, very much so. Yes,
One that people can relate to, I think, but in no
yes,
means is that isolated to stress as a symptom. All range of emotional and trauma in the etheric body and all these different energetic bodies can bring about the physical manifestation of this change. And this, Hazel, is a huge point that I want to make, and one of the reasons why I brought you onto the program, among others, is that what you're doing, in my opinion, and it is the opinion, as I can see in my research, that is being adopted by many more people when they understand the relationship of these energetic bodies and realize then we're more than, if I might use the word, and it's a little rough, but a meat sack. We're not just this pink flesh and skin and eyeballs and hair. We have a divine self. We have an inner self. We have a series of energetic bodies that are all
Yes.
interrelated and cannot function independently of one another. So in order to bring about healing for human beings, not anywhere in the world, is to realize first and foremost that these energetic bodies are connected, and also that in order to treat problems often deeply ingrained in the body need to be dealt with on this whole range of bodies, not just the physical manifestation, which is almost in effect just the affect. It's just the effect. It's not the cause of many of these problems.
Precisely.
And this is
Precisely.
brutally important, I think, to make this point, Hazel, because in what you're doing and what you're saying, for me, is now is the time more than ever to bring about this information and make it known to more people around the world, and why I brought you on. So I'm very grateful you're here to talk about it. So continue on about this. Can you talk a little bit to this interrelation of the bodies and how they're affecting one another?
Yes. So you have the mental body, which is, let's say, the mind, and the mind tends to interpret events and experiences through various ideas and associations. And in so doing, it affects the emotional body. So if, for example, you are confronted with an experience that your perceptions through the passage of time sees as a negative experience, and that experience, that interpretation of the experience as negative could impact upon your emotional response, which will be stress, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
And that could be compounded, and it could actually affect your etheric body, which sort of is the lines of meridian or forces where all our organs and every part of our body is connected, which will inevitably affect the physical body. So they're all related. We can't see them as discrete entities or parts. They all impact upon each other.
Interrelated, yeah.
Yes, so the beginning is to preempt this. To preempt this, we have to change our way of thinking. We have to change our way of interpreting events and experiences and interactions with people in our lives.
Okay, so for example, like just as an example, it just popped into my head. I have a fear of sharks. Okay, I have a fear of sharks. I've never had a bad experience with sharks. I used to swim in the ocean, no problem, never a thought to anything occurring. Now I have this fear that's developed only a short time ago that affects me quite strongly, and I don't have any personal experience negatively with sharks. I don't have any family members that have had any experiences, and yet at moments I'm overwhelmed by fear. Is this an example, for instance, of some kind of experience that I've had that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with a physical manifestation of the problem, but a problem in another one of the energetic bodies?
Yes, it is in your cell memory, because what is coming through very strongly for me here that is what in a past life you had that experience at this particular time in your life. And the cell memory is actually bringing it up to your awareness now as a reflection of what happened in that time.
That is
A time
fascinating.
that is past.
Okay, wonderful. So that makes a lot of sense. So we really need I'm just following this thought on over as well, because you're suggesting that if we can safely assume for the majority of people, they don't deal with these problems of the etheric body and other energetic bodies within our human system at all for their entire lives. And people go through their entire lives, let's say, accumulating more rather than dealing with these things. More problems crop up, more things develop, more things compound, because none of these things were dealt with. We might deal with the effects of these problems which
Yes,
have developed,
but
which
not the
might be
cause.
physical symptoms, but not the purpose, and therefore we can never
Sorry,
heal
but not the
us,
cause.
not the cause, and we cannot heal ourselves entirely. And then could it also be, can I also just run with this and say that therefore, if we deal with these things, these problems that may have to do with past lives, they may have to do with mental blockages, to do with other energetic parts of our human system, that we can extend our longevity and our health in a general sense for the entirety of our lives?
Definitely, definitely,
Okay.
without a doubt.
Okay. Well, this is all good news for me because that's what I intend to do.
Well, you
No.
can actually use hypnosis to be regressed back to the life when you had the experience, confront it and clear it, and then you'd find that that fear is removed.
Oh, wonderful. Well, then that's definitely what I have to do. Now, can I just double check as well? I meant to bring this up at the beginning, very very briefly, if you wouldn't mind, because I'm sure there will be people who'd like to start searching this up while listening. Can we just clarify? You have two websites. You have a teaching ministry website, Path to Freedom is
It's true.
Truth.com.
Yes.
Great. So that's all one word, basically lowercase
Yes.
www.path2freedomistruth.com, and that's a
Yes.
collection of your telepathic messages, channelings, and teachings, is it?
Yes.
Okay, and then we have your healing website as well, celestialhealing.org. So that's again one word, celestial, CELESTIL, healing, one word, .org. And again, that
Yes.
will take you, that's your healing ministry. That's to do.
Celestial healing.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's continue on then. This is fantastic stuff. We have identified the fact that for the most part, the physical symptoms are really effects and not the cause. And in effect, what you are learning to do is to heal the causes of these problems and not
Precisely.
the effects, which really will go away once the cause is dealt with.
Precisely. I've also done theta healing, which is a very interesting modality whereby, once again, we are able to identify various issues and root beliefs in someone's life that might be causing a particular problem. And we actually do what is called muscle testing on them to identify the truth or untruth of their beliefs. It's a form of kinesiology. And the simplest way to do it is you have to be properly hydrated, and you stand facing north and begin by saying yes, yes, yes. And your body should automatically move forward because it is your unconscious mind that is responding, not your conscious mind. You say no, 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 your body should move backwards. So for someone who's doing it at the first time, it might take some practice, but you have to be properly hydrated. Then we test them for certain beliefs. So I might say to somebody, okay, well, the first thing I'm going to test you for is God loves me. And your conscious mind may believe that God loves you, and you might fight to the death, saying, no, 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 I believe that God loves me. But when you test the person, their body goes backwards. They don't really, deep in their unconscious mind, they do not believe that God loves them. And that could be in itself the root for a problem or the cause of a problem that they are suffering from. And with their permission, I connect to the light using the theta brainwave, and I travel up to what we call the seventh plane of existence. And I make a command. I become one at that point with the creator in an expanded mode. And I make a command for the creator to remove the program and instill another program. And then I go down into the consciousness of the person and I witness the creator making that change. And then I will muscle test the person again to see if the program has changed.
Okay. I see, I see. So using this kinesiology as a form of testing to see the
Yes.
biological effect of the changes that you're making, you can discern whether you've been effective or not. Is that right?
Well, it's not really the biological effect of the changes, but to see whether the program itself the program of thinking or belief has changed. So, for example, over the weekend, I did a healing session, and my client, when I tested the client did not believe that her mother and father loved her.
Okay.
Because the muscle testing actually showed that. So through a series of questions, I got to the bottom belief. All right. And it's funny, the bottom belief you would never actually think is related to that belief, that program. But the bottom belief was that I don't exist.
Oh my gosh.
And when I went up to the creator, in fact, it was the creator who told me that, because I couldn't, through questioning her, I couldn't even get the answer. So I went up to the creator and I asked, well, what is the bottom belief? And he said, he said to me, I don't exist. So I went up and I cleared that program, and I witnessed it being cleared, and I instilled a new program, and I tested her again. And when I tested her, her body moved forward, and she was shocked, showing that she now believed that her father and mother loved her.
Wow. Okay.
Instantaneous healing.
Wow. Okay. And I'm feeling tingles as you're talking about it. That must have been a very powerful moment. Now, Hazel, I just wanted to confirm now, we have only about 3 or 4 minutes left in this first session. We have zoomed through just as I imagined we would. And I didn't bring you onto the program to just talk about this work. I wanted to also talk about some of the other very important topics you had suggested we approach today. Now, in the last, say, 3 or 4 minutes, would you like to say anything more about your ministry, about your teaching as such, and the work you do? Or I'm just thinking maybe we might further explore a little bit to really cement the ideas you put forward already about about the way in which these energetic bodies affect you and me and everybody else, and the way in which we need to pay more attention to them in order to live a more wholesome and healthy life.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
All right, let's do that then.
So what exactly? Okay, so is there any specific point you'd like me to sort of
yeah,
zone
I'm
into?
just thinking because again, it just keeps right up there in the front of my head, talking about the simple
Okay.
fact that the reality of our healing stems not from our physical body. Can you talk a
Yes.
bit more? We have mentioned the
Okay.
mind, and we have mentioned
Yes.
about a little bit about the belief system. Can you talk about maybe either the belief system or the mind, or maybe even go so far as to say our spiritual selves affect the health of our physical bodies?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the problem is that if we have blockages in our energetic centers, and those are what we call the chakra centers, the main
Right.
energetic centers in our body, which we can develop, which we can bring over from past lives, or we could inherit through our DNA, our cells genetically, or we can develop over this life. So it can be programs, beliefs, ways of thinking. All of those become very much a part of our energetic makeup or imprint.
Mm.
And because of that, it creates blockages and barriers. And that actually prevents our ability to become spiritually open. And to become spiritually open simply means allowing more of that primal, natural life force to flow through us. But if it's blocked, if those energetic centers, which are the seat to higher consciousness, are actually blocked, well, then how could there be a free flow of that primal life force energy?
Agreed.
So the point is that if we take responsibility and we come through self-introspection and realize what some of those belief patterns or programming might be that are not in our highest interest or not in our highest good, what we can do is take positive action to have them cleared so that more the light begins to unfold from within those energetic centers, allowing us to tap into a higher consciousness.
Okay. And is this something that as a facilitator I understand that you do? Would you say that the majority of the cases that you work with are coming to you with problems that are developed mainly through these programmed belief systems and
Yeah.
these systems that which are created through schooling and through maybe what our parents tell us and these things. Is that the majority of the cases the problems ensue
Yeah.
from?
Yes, of course. That is exactly what I'm saying. And as I said, you can bring it from past lives and don't even know. It could be part of your genetic encoding and you don't know.
My gosh, Hazel, we're in a lot of trouble. So people like you, I'm beginning to understand are vastly more important than we realize. But is there anything? We only have a minute or so left in this session,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Why don't we continue on in the second hour? Let's just go ahead and take a break right now, and
Okay.
we'll continue on in the second hour. Is that okay?
That's fine.
All
Fine for
right,
me.
wonderful. So this is the source, 107.9 FM with Benjamin. We're currently I am currently interviewing Hazel Sinanan, and we're having a very healthy discussion about the causes of the root cause of most of the problems of humanity. And so we're going to continue us in the second hour. So please stay with us, and we'll be back right after this. And welcome back, everybody, to the second part of our very important interview with Hazel Sinanan. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It really is an honor to have her on the program again. Hazel is she's a budding author, soon to be a publishing author, a teacher and a healer, connecting with me on our pre-recorded interview for 107.9 FM Radio Fremantle, The Source. I'm talking to her. She's all the way over there in, I believe it's partly sunny London at
Yes.
present. Yes. And we're talking about some very important topics. We just introduced her, what she does and how she does it in her mission for her healing and teaching mission. And now we're going to get into the meat of the sandwich, as it were, as to the some of the things that she came on to say this evening. I just wanted to mention as well quickly her websites, again, for those who are wanting to make a little bit more research about this wonderful individual I have on the program today. The first site is her teaching website, www.pathtofreedomistruth.com. One word, lowercase, no spaces, pathtofreedomistruth.com. And also her healing website. You can find much more about what she does in her healing, www.celestialhealing.org. That's celestial healing, all lowercase, one word, no spaces, celestial healing. Now, Hazel, let's get right into the nitty-gritty, as it were. You have some important issues to communicate to your listening audience today, so let's get right to it. The first one, Hazel, just make sure you're hearing me okay, Hazel?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Wonderful, excellent. So the first one we have here, I'll let you introduce the topic if you like. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Okay, I want to speak about the myth of separation. We tend to see God as this ineffable being who is so far removed from us, who resides or dwells in a far distant heaven, that we can't really access him but through what I would call conventional prayer and praise. And even so, we find it difficult to receive or hear any such guidance from him. Now, when I speak of God, I speak of an energy. Now, many call that energy by different names. Some call it God, creator of all that is, one mind, the source, one soul, universal intelligence, Father, Mother, Spirit, whatever makes the audience feel comfortable. You can call the energy by that name. But what I want to address today is what I'm going to try to do today actually is through illustration to try to bridge that divide. Now, typically through religion, we are taught that God is outside of ourselves. And furthermore, many feel if we can't see God, well, he must not exist, or if he does exist, he cannot be a part of us. And in fact, the thought of him being a part of each of us, or each of us being one with him, is too overwhelming. So the myth of separation is really due to the majority of us being untaught or unschooled about the nature of God and his relationship with his creation through the mechanics of creation.
Okay.
nothing can really move forward in life unless the individual has a true understanding of God and of his or her relationship with God. And to have a true understanding of God requires first an intellectual comprehension, so comprehension at the level of our mind of the methods that God uses to create bodies. And secondly, we must have an understanding of the spiritual God. And understanding the spiritual God really entails or involves our feeling the presence of God within ourselves.
Okay, very good.
It is my view that if one can achieve a basic understanding from an intellectual and a spiritual point of view, one will not feel far removed from God. So I'm now going to endeavor to provide a very simple explanation through illustration to aid in an intellectual comprehension, first and foremost, of God.
All right.
So I want you to visualize a circle. It could be as infinite as you like it to be. And that circle represents pure consciousness or God. Within this consciousness is the mind of God. And in this mind, time does not exist. It is absolutely still. But this mind, that is the mind of God, had one idea, and that is creation. And through the illusion of motion, using two extended light waves, so these two light waves extended from the mind of God, God imagined and thought his one idea into multiple ideas, and we are part of the multiple ideas, and he projected the multiple ideas onto the screen of life, which I will call time and space. So from the point of stillness in the mind of God, there was one idea of creation, and he used these two extended light waves to imagine and think his idea into multiple ideas, which he reflected or projected on the screen of time and space. We are therefore a mirror of God's thoughts. Now, I want you to think of that screen of life, being the screen of time and space, as the screen that will face you when you go to watch a movie in a cinema. So by analogy, think of that screen similarly. Now, bear in mind what I just said to you, and I want to take you on a little journey now. I want you to take your thoughts back to a time when you visited the cinema. Okay. You are seated in front of a very large screen. When the movie starts, the screen becomes alive. An unseen projector electrically projects a spectrum of colored light and sound wave motion pictures onto that screen. That is how, with your outer senses, your ears and your eyes, you can actually see the actors and witness the events and scenes unfolding. You can actually become so engrossed in the movie through your outer senses that it appears to be real. You get lost in that movie. It is your outer senses which makes the experience of the movie feel real. Now, if you were to walk up to the screen whilst the movie is playing and try to touch the actors or actresses, you would not be able to do so, would you?
No.
And you certainly can't become a part of the movie, can you? No. Why do you think that is? Simply because what you are seeing and hearing is not real. It is an illusion. The movie is a mirror of what is projected through an instrument. If the projector is turned off, so will the movie, because the light waves and sound waves will cease to be. With that picture in mind, let us now go back to the first illustration where I said to you that we are a mirror of the Creator's thoughts. So you see now this Creator, or God, as the projector, who uses the illusion of motion by extending the light onto the screen of time and space to project his multiple ideas to create actors and scenes on the screen. Very much like the movie producer who use that projector to project the movie on the screen, the creator has created a movie of sorts. We are the players on the screen of time and space. Just like how those actors find themselves on the screen in the movie theater. And we find ourselves here because of the creator. If he were to stop thinking through the extended light waves, we will not be here. But because he continues to think through those light waves, we are here. But it is our senses, that is our outer senses, which makes the experience that we are having in time and space feel very real, just as it is our outer senses that makes the movie in the cinema appear to be real, because we become so engrossed in the story that we forget it is not real.
Very good.
Are you following me?
Mm-hmm.
So we are connected to God through the light which he uses to think us into being. Now that light centers us. It is what we will call our centering consciousness. That it is why it is said that God is within us, because his light is within us. That's where the light emanates from. And therefore we cannot be separate from him. The moment he stops thinking, that light will be no more and we will not be here. Now that's one perspective. I want now to take you to a slightly higher perspective. If we are a mirror of the Creator's thoughts on the screen of time and space, and what is on that screen is an illusion, just as how the movie that you go to see, what is on the screen is not real, then we never really left God, did we?
No.
It is simply our senses which makes us feel that we have. Now, I want you very quickly to think about a mirror in your home. When you stand still in front of that mirror, you see you see an image reflecting back, don't you?
Yes.
You actually haven't moved, have you?
Mm-mm.
You haven't moved anywhere. So it's the same thing when the Creator creates. He hasn't moved. What he's projecting is an image of himself. He never moved. We never moved. We remain in the mind of the Creator. We remain in the Creator. We are, in fact, one with the Creator. You must have heard the saying that God is all. God is all there is and all that exists. And it is said quite a lot these days. So if this is the case, can we be separate from him? With this perception or understanding in mind, we can surely reason that we are not merely an extension of God's thinking. We are not merely part of the whole, but we are one with God. And it is simply the illusion of time and space. It is simply our senses which make it seem more than one, or make it seem real. So, using this illustration, I have attempted in a simple way to show what it means when we say that God is not separate from man, man is not separate from God, and he cannot, in fact, be separate from God. But I want to give you a little picture that the Creator showed to me through my meditations. He showed me a corn on the cob, okay? And this corn, actually, the corn is covered by many leaves.
Yes.
So the corn itself is covered by many leaves. And he said that this is you, or what is beneath the leaves or sheaves are you. During the course of the myriad experiences in your life or myriad incarnations, you will learn lessons and you will grow from those lessons. And as you learn and as you grow, those leaves or sheaves gradually, one by one, will unfold, will be removed. You will relinquish them. And what is left at the end of the day is the beautiful golden kernel attached to the spine. You are that corn. You are a golden kernel, that golden kernel that is representative of the light that is attached to the spine, which is God. And every other kernel represents your brothers and sisters of the soul. You too are connected to them. You cannot be separate from them. You are all one with God. In fact, you are God, because that corn represents the one. There is no separation. There cannot be any separation. What is separating you from knowing this is your perception. It's all those leaves or cover-ups that you have, all those barriers to you seeing through the eyes of truth, through the eyes of your centering consciousness, through the eyes of light.
Well, there we go. That was a beautiful imagery, Hazel. I think that that point is firmly made, and I can see as well that the importance that you place. Considering we had more time, I'd like to consider it further. But obviously, this idea of God being inaccessible is really quite predominant in most people's minds, and even through most of the religious tenets that are expressed through the indoctrinations that we go through, whether it be through Christianity in terms of Catholicism, or perhaps through Islam or other tenets as well. There never seems to be a real effort to break down this myth of separation. There never seems to be a real sturdy go at getting rid of this idea of inaccessibility. For the most part, prayer and separation, prayer and, as you mentioned, praise are the main methods of communication, and that does not suggest to me that we are somehow connected. That suggests that there is indeed separation, and that we are worshiping someone much greater and separate than ourselves. And yet you're espousing the idea that in reality there is no separation, and within ourselves lies the seeds of the Creator himself. And
that is correct.
Can I just ask you, and I know it's hard to do this briefly, but this is important for you to make this statement. You've chosen some of the statements that you want to make for the show this evening. Why can you elucidate at all why you feel it's so important right now that the myth of this separation become more public and more mindful in the people's hearts and thoughts?
Yes, because we are ascending, so to speak. We're in the time of the ascension, whereby we are being called home. The universe is calling us home. The Father within us is knocking on the portals of our minds, our hearts, our soul, calling us to come into a deeper remembrance of who we are. It is time to awaken to your true self and to take responsibility. All right? And that is why it is important for man's understanding to grow, and for man as a race to be open to these new paradigms. And he doesn't only have to accept it at an intellectual level, and shortly I will talk about a spiritual understanding of God that will enable him to feel the presence, so he is able to achieve his own inner validation. I want to add here, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course.
The Creator again gave me an image not a few days back, and through my meditation, and he answers a question that you just a short while ago posed. He said that I want you to look at that, and I said, well, that just seems to me to be like a light that is emanating from a fountain. So it's a beautiful long ray of light. He says, I want you to know that that is who you are. And he says, I do not understand why my children, through the course of their lives, take on so many raiments and cloaks and clothing to place on themselves to cover up that light. And I said, well, what do you mean by that, Father? He says, every time you engage in fear, doubt, anger, hatred, hypocrisy, greed, whatever it is, you are adding on an unwelcome cloak over that light. And you are suffocating that light. That light does not have an eye to see through. Yet you call on me and you pray to me to ask me to help you alleviate your problems. But have you considered that you, in fact, are responsible for creating the density that is over your light and around your life? You cannot hear guidance, you cannot see guidance, you cannot receive guidance, you cannot be open to guidance because you are cloaking yourself with these heavy density emotions that are not of me. Why are you doing that, my children? Why are you covering up the light that I birthed you from and in and through? What is it that you are afraid of? And when he asked that question to me, I said, Father, what is coming to me now is that what we fear is our highest potential, our God potential, and taking responsibility. It is easy, Father, to place the responsibility on you to make things right. It is more difficult for us to assume responsibility. That is why we are unconsciously burying our light.
It's very true, Hazel, and I can't help but simply reflect on the state of the situation at play at this time in terms of humanity at this moment on the planet and the incredible amount of wars we're engaged in. As you mentioned, the hypocrisy, the greed, the hatred, the corruption, the myth of separation, unfortunately, does appear to be very much alive and well when you consider that man definitely, for the most part, believes that we are at first separate from each other and most definitely separate from God, because at this stage we couldn't really appear to be much further from a perfected God being than we are right now, because we're not acting like it. And in terms of the importance of what you're saying now, I couldn't think of a more poignant time for this information, so thank you. Did you say all you wanted to talk about the first point you were going to make, or would you like to continue then?
I just want to continue very briefly.
Go ahead.
To say
yes,
that
by all means.
you can have an intellectual comprehension of God based on that little illustration, which is quite simplistic. I try to make it easy for you to understand. But the fact of God's existence is not as important as our ability to feel his presence. For it is when we are able to feel his presence that we shall bring true realization and knowing that he dwells within us. In other words, we will not doubt it. We know that God is all light and love, or so we have been told. But if we never in truth left him, as I have sought to illustrate earlier on, or at the very least we are a projection of him, then how can we be anything other than what he is, love and light? In reality, we cannot be less than what God is, and that is complete, all-enveloping love and all-enveloping light. So how do we reconnect with this love and light so that we can feel one with God? I want to mention two things here. Before I talk about meditation very briefly, I want to introduce your audience, if they have not yet come into an awareness of this, of the secret chamber that we all have within our physical heart. Therein lies the threefold flame of power, which represents the Father, wisdom, which represents the Son, and love, which represents the Spirit. In your meditative moments, or in your moments of quiet contemplation, you can visualize yourself entering into the sanctuary of that sacred heart space. And you can visualize it in whatever way you like. What I tend to do is that I tend to see that I have that special, unique key, which I use to open the chamber. I enter the chamber, I visualize it in whatever way I choose to. But in the middle of the chamber, I see this beautiful threefold flame of power, love, and wisdom. And I sit in the middle of that flame to begin to connect with the love, the power, the light, the wisdom that I am, the divine within me, so to speak. And I simply ask the Father, after I immerse myself in that light, I say, Father, reveal more and more of yourself to me, that I may grow into awareness more and more of who I truly am. So every time I go into that chamber to meditate or spend some quiet time, I simply affirm that. I say to him, I say, Father, Reveal more and more of yourself to me now, that I may come into greater awareness of who I truly am. And the more I am able to actually do this, the more I am able to reap from that energy. You know, whatever man experiences in his life, there is always an insatiable desire to know the wholeness of love. Aren't we always seeking love? Love from our parents, from our partners, from friends. In fact, we spend most of our lives searching for the very thing that causes us the most grief. Why is that? Because we are seeking it first and foremost from the outer source. We need to know where love truly is, first and foremost. We need to understand the nature of that love before we can offer it and receive it in a fulfilling way. And if we can connect with the sacred chamber in our hearts, where that love is present, the more and more we are able to reap from that love, we begin to develop the qualities of the heart. All-enveloping love that knows kindness, compassion, generosity. It is free of hatred, free of anger, free of hypocrisy, free of self-judgment. It is all-enveloping, and therein lies our freedom. And the more we are able to connect with the divine, which is love within that chamber, we begin to feel unified. We begin to feel more divine because we are taking on the attributes of the divine. But we have to have a strong desire to know ourselves in truth. And we are, as I said before, pure love and light, because we cannot be less than what God is. And we have to have a desire to see God within ourselves. We have to have a passion and powerful intent, and that desire must be registered in our hearts. You know, we put in so much effort in our daily jobs to make other people rich, yet seldom do we have the energy, time, motivation, or discipline to invest in ourselves so that our true inner wealth and richness can unfold, which will allow us to use that to fashion a noble, fulfilling, and truly rich life.
Yeah, well, no, that is quite clear. I'm gonna let you continue. Shall we continue?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So with that in mind, I want now, apart from you utilizing the secret chamber of your heart to meditate, I want to talk a little more about meditation, the pathway to the divine within, the route to self-discovery, and the power of intent and meditation. I already gave you one example of using the sacred chamber of your heart. Now, meditation means different things to different people. It is practiced more resolutely and pervasively in these times, used for different purposes. The meditation I wish to speak of is that which is the key to the door of inner awareness, awareness of your divinity and God's self. Meditation that leads you from the world of your outer senses to the world of your soul. To understand the spiritual God, or to feel the presence of God, you have to separate your human consciousness from the awareness of your body, at least for a while, or partly so that you can reach for higher consciousness. And meditation is the vehicle that allows you to do this. It allows you to explore your centering consciousness, which I spoke about earlier on. In other words, our power lies in this centering consciousness, which is always still. So in order to connect with that stillness, we have to still our body so that we can become attuned to our inner or higher senses, which I spoke about earlier on. It is through meditation that you can seek true inner guidance. You can seek knowledge from within yourself. And eventually, as you dedicate some time every day to this process, you will realize that during the course of your daily life, you will always feel connected to the divine within you. And what meditation is truly is moment-to-moment communion with divine within. Now, I know people could go and read about meditation in many different places. I am not here to teach or to speak about this. What I want to speak about now is the fact that you might be surprised how many people have unconscious God issues which preempt them from having a really abiding, solid, true relationship with the divine within. And these unconscious issues create barriers. So in their conscious mind, they may feel, yes, I know God, I believe in God, I love God, God loves me, I can connect with God. But how are you connecting with God? Are you really connecting with God in a substantial, real way that is allowing you to reap that true inner guidance and higher knowing? We have many blockages, and I'll give you a little example. I I have been developing various natural abilities that I have, my intuition being one of those. And I came to recognize that I had a little block. I wasn't trusting my intuition as I should be. And I recognized that block. I was honest with myself and I recognized it. And through theta healing, I had someone, not myself, work on me to try to get to the bottom belief. Why it is that I do not trust my intuition. Do you know what my bottom belief was?
What?
I was afraid to disappoint God. Can you imagine that? And I am one who I'm working with a block today. Do you see how unconsciously we could have these blockages and we don't know?
I find that hard to believe that you would have that block, but go on.
I did. And the moment it was cleared, I became a different person. I do not question my intuition now. I believe it. I know it. It has become graduated into a knowing. So the point I'm making is that many times in our conscious mind, we feel we can meditate, we feel we know God, we feel this or we feel that, but there are blockages, unconscious though they may be. So what I want to do now is to take you and the audience, for those who are willing to participate, through a little process that I have been taught, a technique that I have been taught that could be the foundation of releasing thoughts, beliefs, ideas that have created blockages.
Let's do it.
Unknowingly to us. You ready for this?
I'm ready for this.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to have you connected to the light. You just follow my instructions. I will do some explanations as we go up.
Okay.
So I want you to take 2 deep breaths first and foremost. Center yourself a bit. Close your eyes. I want you to roll your eyes up into your head slightly, so as if you are looking up. Project your consciousness, or feel as if you're traveling about 300 to 400 feet above your head or out of your head into space, where you can see, sense, and feel the light. And I want you to know that it is absolutely safe and absolutely perfect for you to connect with this light. So once you can see, sense, and feel the light in whatever way it is being shown to you, I want you to mentally open up your crown and visualize the light coming through your crown, clearing any blockages to your receiving guidance, opening up all your knowing so that you can know and receive truth and guidance. I want you to see the light flowing into your third eye, which is by your brow or in between your middle of your forehead, cleaning and cleansing that area so that you can begin to see guidance and see truth. See the light flowing into your ears, cleansing any blockages so that you can hear higher guidance. See the light flowing into your throat, clearing any blockages that are holding you back from speaking your truth and being who you are. See the light flowing down through your arms, into your hands. You may even feel a tingling sensation at the tip of your fingers. Feel the light flowing like liquid light into your heart, clearing any old energies of betrayal, hurt, self-judgment, and opening up new energies so that you can feel love, compassion, kindness for yourself and for others. Now see the light moving in or around your navel region, clearing away all judgments or old fears, any issues you may have with being powerless or not being in control. See that dissolving in the light, making space. See the light flowing 2 inches below your navel, clearing any space where there is fear or frustration, pain or old suffering rooted. See it being totally resolved. Any feelings of rejection, you're just clearing from that area. Let the light flow. Let it flow. Let it flow now to the base of your spine, where it is cleansing any blockages to you feeling connected to yourself and to the light. See the light flowing down through your hips, removing any feelings of stagnation, down through your thighs, down through your legs, down through the sole of your feet, flowing like liquid light down all the way to the center of the earth, where it merges with the earth's pure consciousness, the very core of the earth. See that light bouncing all the way back up through the soles of your feet, your legs, your thighs, your hips, your torso, into your heart, radiating like the sun, 360 degrees, getting bigger and bigger, bigger than your body. See it radiating 10 to 12 feet above you and all around you, into your room, through every room in your home, over and above your home, over and above your village, your town, your center, or your city, over and above your country, radiating like the sun all around, way beyond the globe or the planet, higher and higher. You are now so expanded, so connected to your highest self. It is at this point that I am going to ask you mentally to make these or state these energy clearing statements, which we are going to delete, uncreate, and destory. When I say delete, just you can see the button being pressed and the limiting belief or program being deleted. When I say uncreate and destory, simply see the light blowing up this false belief or limiting belief or programming or blockage or barrier, as the case might be. What destory means is that we are taking out the lies from what you believe. We are taking out the lies so that truth can enter. Okay, so are you ready?
Ready.
Everywhere you feel that it is not possible or safe to connect with God or the source, uncreate, delete, and destory across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Everywhere you feel you cannot connect to the source or God, or that you are disconnected from the source, uncreate, delete, destory across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Everywhere you do not know what it feels like to totally connect to the source, or to be totally connected to the source, or how to be totally connected to the source, uncreate, delete, destory across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Everywhere you feel that the source does not love you or cannot love you, uncreate, delete, destory across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Everywhere you feel that you are not worthy of the source's love or deserving of the source's love, uncreate, delete, destory across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. So just see it being all blown up. Everywhere you are afraid to connect with the source, uncreate, delete, destory across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Everywhere you feel you are not good enough, smart enough, spiritual enough, important enough to connect with the source, uncreate, delete, destroy. Everywhere you have doubts regarding your ability to connect with the source, uncreate, delete, destroy. Everywhere you feel you are not an infinite being, uncreate, delete, destroy across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Everywhere you feel you don't know how to meditate, you can't meditate, or that it is not safe to meditate, uncreate, delete, destroy across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Everywhere you feel that others can meditate and commune with the source, but you cannot, uncreate, delete, and destroy. Everywhere you don't want to connect with the source because you will realize your God potential and are afraid of this, uncreate, delete, destroy across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. Everywhere you feel that if you can hear the voice of the source or receive guidance from the source, your friends or family will think that you are weird or mental, uncreate, delete, destroy across all time, space, and realities. Everywhere you think this technique will not work, uncreate, delete, and destroy. Everywhere you feel resistance to releasing limiting beliefs and thoughts, uncreate, delete, destroy across all time, space, dimensions, and realities. So as you've seen all of this blown up now, what we are going to do is that we are going to send out energy to the universe for the following to manifest. So you can say silently, what would it take to know my true self? What would it take to see myself the way the source sees me? What would it take to feel and know myself as an infinite being? What would it take to live every day totally connected to the source and to feel totally connected to the source? What will it take to feel one with the source? What will it take for me to live in the highest vibration possible so that I could always feel connected to the source? What will it feel like to radiate the energy of the source from within myself to the world? And there we are. You can come back down now. You can open your eyes. How do you feel?
I feel almost a little guilty for having that experience, and I'm supposed to be conducting a radio interview. That was fantastic, Hazel. Thank you very
feel
much.
actually very much lighter. Now, if you do this day in, day out, you will release a lot more and you're going to manifest a lot more. So meditation in itself becomes easier. Now, I need to give credit to a lady called Christy Marie Sheldon, who taught me that technique. Obviously, I created the energy clearing statements specifically for this purpose, but she taught me this technique. She's a powerful intuitive. She has her own website. She teaches about removing blockages to being able to receive the abundance that you are, or tap into your abundance. So I must give her credit for this. But it's the technique that I use myself.
Well, you know, at the very least, if the listeners are brave enough and courageous enough to attempt what the exercises we just went through, then I would strongly suggest you will see something of an occurrence happen at one point or another. And I do implore people to try what we just did, and they will be able to download this interview as well, Hazel, and practice this if they would like to continue on. So that was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that exercise with everybody. Now, I just need to clarify. Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something else about that one?
You go ahead first.
I just wanted to clarify, just in terms of time frame, we are down to our last 15 minutes. So I leave it up to you to consider where we move forward from now. I do apologize. We're running short of time, but I would love to continue this for hours.
That's okay. I think what I want to say now is that was a preparation to releasing that which is holding us back from truly connecting with the divine through meditation. So I want now to very briefly speak about the meditation process and how the audience, if they don't do it already, can actually attempt it. I always say that you have to have that genuine intent to want to be alone with God, and you have to assign the time to be totally committed to communing in this way. So there should be nowhere else you'd rather be, nothing else you'd rather be saying, and no one else you'd rather be saying to when you engage in the meditation process. Mm-hmm. So just a few practical hints and tips. I will say to them that before they meditate, they should affirm very positively their intent. So they can say aloud, first and foremost, I want to be alone with God. I desire to be in God's light. I desire knowledge, empowerment, inspiration, and guidance. Then they can feel that desire flowing and settling into their heart. Remember, God reads the longings of our hearts. For this is the place where our sincere feelings are held. We can say many things through our lips and through words, but they are meaningless unless we feel it in our heart. So that's where he reads the longings. So you can say it and let it settle into your heart. And then you might want to breathe very deeply a few times. So affirm again, I want to relax. Breathe very deeply in. Hold the breath for a count of 6. Then slowly exhale. And as you exhale, feel the tension moving from your body. Do this as many times as you need to until you feel as if your body is totally relaxed. So this is the first sort of way of getting your body relaxed so you're not focused on your body or on your senses. Mm-hmm. Because remember, you're traveling inwards to access the higher mind. Mm. Now, after you finish breathe, and your body's relaxed, see all unwanted thoughts clearing away as it travels out of your mind. It might help some people to see their mind as a computer screen, and they could press the delete button.
That's what I was doing in the last one. That's the image that came to my mind. This computer screen with the delete button works very well for me, yeah.
So clear the screen of your mind and then silently affirm, I am still, I am still, I am still. And simply allow your mind to receive that higher guidance. It might come in the form of a thought, a vision. You might hear something. Don't try to control it. Just allow it to be. Let go, let go, let go, and just allow it in. If you hear or see or feel nothing the first time, perseverance is the key. The more you are committed to this process, the more you are going to have positive results. I promise you that. So meditation is the route to inner awareness. But what is that inner awareness? It is a higher awareness. It is the awareness of God within yourself. And as infinite beings, there is only awareness. And if we become aware of God within ourselves, can you imagine how all of our choices will be aligned with that higher awareness? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We can only really find fulfillment in our journey if we become aware of the light of God within us. So awareness of God within ourselves leads to awareness of our power. Awareness of God within ourselves leads to awareness that we are light. Awareness of God within ourselves will give us an awareness of what our purpose is on this earth. And I have been taught that our purpose on the earth is to discover our talents and callings and sacred labor, to manifest the one will, and to reach the topmost pinnacle of human unfoldment. Awareness of God within ourselves will bring an awareness of how to use our power to manifest the light. But I want to reiterate that this awareness that I'm speaking of is not sense awareness, but it is mind awareness, which we spoke about at the very beginning, which comes from the higher mind as your inner senses unfold. And that will only happen, or can only happen, through the meditation process. If you want to know God more, you want to feel God more, you want to become more like God, you have to expand your awareness. And time alone with God through meditation will yield this. At this point, I simply want to give 2 examples of the difference between knowing through your higher mind and sensing with your outer senses. And I want to illustrate to the audience the disparity. Our outer senses tells us when we are physically awake, that we are conscious conscious, isn't it so? So when we are physically awake, our outer senses tells us we are conscious.
Yes.
But when we are asleep, we believe that we are unconscious. But in truth, if we come to know the infinite presence within ourselves and we can tap into that higher mind, that knowing mind, we will know that pure consciousness, which I spoke about at the very beginning, is all that exists. So whether we are asleep or awake, we are conscious. It is just that the consciousness we experience when we are asleep is not sense related. So outer perception based on our outer senses does not always equate to truth. Knowing is truth, and you can only know if you can tap into your higher mind. Think again of a wheel with a rim, spokes and a hub. So there's a wheel with a rim, spokes, and a hub. Only a tiny part of the rim of the wheel will touch the ground at any one moment, wouldn't it?
Yes.
It actually feels the ground, and it is that part of the circle or wheel which touches the ground that comes within the range of our senses, because we could feel the ground. But it doesn't mean that the other parts of the wheel doesn't exist. So in time and space where we are, our senses tells us we are here and we exist. But what about the rest of the circle, the rest of the wheel of life, which is immortal and eternal? Does it mean that other planets don't exist? Other universes don't exist? That there's not life elsewhere? No, there is. But to access the larger part of the wheel beyond our outer senses requires an attunement to our inner senses. When we rely only on our outer senses, we accept that which is limited. The Father said to me, I am your transformer. Access me, and I will transform you inside out. In other words, he says to me, what is on the inside is real, and I will bring what is on the inside on the outside, so that you can see your outer world through your inner world. Only then will you be able to see that which is real.
Well, that is very powerful. I it's almost as you're speaking, and I wonder about for the listening audience when they review this material or after this interview, when they reflect a little bit about what you've said today. It really draws me into what you're saying, and I can't help but visualize of what you're saying, and it's quite reasonable, logical, and I can feel the gravity of what you're saying, and it touches my heart. And I don't often say this in interviews, but you can feel the emotional sense of what you're helping to connect for people, and it's wonderful, Hazel. Thank you. Now, having said that, you've got 5 minutes.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Well, in 5 minutes, I want to just speak. In 5 minutes, I just want to speak about us being motivated now during these auspicious times in the planet to free ourselves. To free ourselves of our lower mind, our ego mind, I mean, to step out of the uniform of humanism, step out of the masquerade of the human mind, the carnal mind, and reach for our divine alter ego. Our ego is that which stands at the door of our souls, deciding whether or not to allow us entrance. What right does the lower mind have to do this when we are pure soul energy? All right? The ego is meant to have a function, but what it does is that it reacts, it attacks, and it defends. It acts out of fear of losing its supremacy. And therefore it breeds division, it compounds separation, it creates the cloaks that the Father was speaking about through me: fear, jealousy, cynicism, hatred, doubt. So we have to recognize that these are the creatures or creation of the ego mind, and we have to step out of it. We have to remove the clothing, throw it away, so that we can reach for our divine alter ego. Now, those who are becoming more and more spirit-led are becoming more and more conscious of the ego's way, and they are learning how to tame the ego. Because they know, and this is where true knowledge comes in, and when you have true knowledge, there is no doubt, that they know of their innate supremacy, and therefore, if they feel that their ego is rising, they have the knowledge of how to tame it. In other words, they live more in what we will call conscious awareness. They take responsibility for their thoughts, their actions, their projections, their responses and reactions to others. And if for a moment they feel that the ego is rising, they will recognize it, take responsibility for it, and recreate what is called balance. Now, I learned this affirmation in the Course of Miracles, Course in Miracles, and I use it all the time. I mean, when I say I use it all the time, if ever I feel the ego wanting to rise up, I call upon it at once, and this is what I say. I say, Father, unite your God mind with my mind and shine out my ego. I relinquish it to the light of my spirit. And I ask that you release your strength into my thoughts, my words, my projections, and my creations. Think with me, Father. Think with me. And at once, the spirit rises. I feel inspired. I feel as if I'm living in spirit again. Because what many do not realize is that what the ego does is that when it starts to respond anti-God, believe you me, we talk about the Antichrist, but the majority of people don't really realize that the ego can be anti-God or anti your true self, is that it could be quite destructive. And therefore, we have to ensure that it is tamed. We have to ensure that the light of our spirit is that which is dominant. And it creates separation. The creatures or creations of the ego create separation. And the moment you start to act in anger and hatred and all these negative, dark, lower density emotions, I'm sorry, you are separating yourself from God. And anyone who wishes to live in the light of the Father, the divine within themselves, to know the God within as themselves, they must step out of the uniform of the ego mind. And they must allow their light to shine.
Very good, very good. Hazel, thank you very much. Now, as I mentioned, my apologies. This is the end of our time frame, and there was much more to continue with. On one hand, I must sum up the interview now this evening, but on the other hand, I must ensure that you agree to come back and do this again. Will you do another interview another time soon?
I will. I definitely will.
Wonderful.
And I have to say to you one thing, that I asked the Father most heartfully to reach out from within me and to use my voice box as his voice so that the energy can reach out to the audience. And everyone who's listening or who will be listening, I have asked the Father to give a special benediction onto, a special blessing. So I would say, blessed be in love and purest light. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hazel. Wonderful. Excellent. Now, just before you leave, I'm just going to very quickly give these websites again. I'm sure there'll be quite a few people who'd like to pursue a little bit about more of the information you've spoken and yourself as well, what you're doing. One more time, the teaching website is pathtofreedom.com. Or just contact me at the radio station. We'll be quite happily to forward that on to you. Or the healing website for Hazel Sinanan is celestialhealing.org. Thank you so much, Hazel, for joining us this evening, and I do have that now down on audio, so you cannot escape. You will have to come back and do another interview. Thank you so much again, and folks, thank you so much. This is Radio Fremantle 107.9 FM, latest in the pre-recorded interviews. This one with the lovely Miss Hazel Sinanan. Fantastic to have her on board, and please stay tuned. We'll be having more for you again this time next week.